I once believed that waking meant opening my eyes. Morning light, familiar shapes, the hum of a world that made sense, all of it convincing enough to call real. But one night, something shifted. I woke from a dream only to find another one waiting, quieter, subtler, but just as fragile. It was not the world that had changed. It was my way of seeing it. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt separate. The walls seemed to breathe. The silence between sounds pulsed with meaning. It was as if the air itself was aware of being looked at. I remember sitting there, motionless, realizing that I was not the one observing life. Life was observing through me. That was the moment I first felt it, the soft dissolving of boundaries. The realization that consciousness was not inside my head. Rather, my head was floating inside consciousness. It wasn't a thought, but a trembling recognition, like remembering a song I had known before birth. From that night onward, reality began to behave like a lucid dream. Synchronicities multiplied. People I hadn't thought of in years suddenly appeared. Words I spoke in passing returned to me through strangers, and every coincidence carried the same quiet whisper. You are being dreamed. At first, the idea frightened me, to think that I was part of someone else's dream, or worse, that no one was dreaming at all, and everything was just mine playing with itself, felt unbearable. I wanted something solid to stand on, but the more I searched for solidity, the more it shimmered and dissolved. Then I remembered the story of Vishnu, the cosmic dreamer resting upon the serpent of eternity, floating upon the ocean of milk. From his navel the lotus blooms, and Brahma emerges, breathing universes into being. In that image I saw myself, a fragment of the same dream, breathing within the breath of the infinite. The fear began to turn into wonder. If this life was indeed a dream, then perhaps awakening did not mean escaping it, but becoming lucid within it. To awaken inside the dream meant to see through its fabric without tearing it apart, to move through illusion while honoring its beauty, to love every shape, knowing that it was made of light. That realization didn't make life easier, it made it truer. Each joy felt holy, each sorrow sacred. Even pain became a kind of teacher, a rough hand guiding me back toward what cannot die. I understood that existence was not a test, nor a punishment, but an exquisite remembering. The universe was not a stage for suffering, but a school for lucidity. And I was both the student and the lesson. Since then, I've carried this awareness like a small flame cupped between my hands. Sometimes it flickers, sometimes it nearly fades, but it never goes out. Every breath is a reminder that I'm being breathed. Every heartbeat is the universe tapping gently from within, asking, "Do you remember who dreams you?" I see it now in the faces of strangers, in the shimmer of water, in the hush before dawn. I see it when grief softens into gratitude, when silence becomes so full it hums. The dream is alive. It watches back. When I walk, I imagine the ground as consciousness solidified. When I speak, I imagine sound waves as ripples across an infinite sea. Nothing is accidental. Everything is communication. The wind against my skin, the memory that returns uninvited, the way certain words glow when spoken, all are signals from the same dreaming source reminding me, you are me pretending to be you. And perhaps that is the most humbling truth of all, that the divine does not dwell above, but within. That the eyes through which I look are the eyes through which God sees himself. That every act of kindness, every whisper of love, every moment of awareness adds light to the dream, making it more lucid, more alive. I no longer seek to awaken from life. I seek to awaken into it, to walk consciously through the illusion, shaping it gently with presence, gratitude, and wonder. I know now that the borders between spirit and matter are only thresholds in perception. Behind every form, consciousness shines, patient, ancient, playful. And so this book is not a theory, it is a remembrance, a map for those who have begun to suspect that there is more behind the veil, for those who have felt reality blink for a moment, revealing something vast beneath its surface. You are not imagining it, the truth truly trembles, and something divine is waiting just beyond the edges of your certainty. If these words reached you, it means you too have felt that trembling, the subtle invitation to awaken within the dream. Tell me your name, where in this vast illusion you are listening from, and what mysteries you long for us to explore together. Let's awaken, one dream at a time.
Chapter 1. Vishnu's Dream, the Mind That Breathes Universes. Before sound, before light, before time could measure itself against anything, there was only breath. A breath so vast it did not yet know it was breathing. From that stillness, consciousness turned inward upon itself, and in doing so, it began to dream. The dream was not empty, it shimmered with infinite potential, a luminous ocean without shore or depth. Across its calm surface floated a figure of impossible serenity, the god Vishnu, resting upon the endless serpent of time. The serpent, coiled and infinite, encircled itself without beginning or end. Its name was Ananta Shesha, the eternal remainder, the pulse of existence folding forever into itself. Beneath Vishnu stretched the Kshira Sagara, the cosmic ocean of milk, not liquid, but the symbol of all unmanifest creation. It was the field before form, the breath before word, the silence before music. From its surface rose ripples of potential, each wave a possibility awaiting awareness. The universe slept there, unborn yet complete, contained within the dream of the divine sleeper. Upon Vishnu's chest, a golden lotus began to bloom. From its heart emerged Brahma, the creative intelligence of the cosmos, the spark of awakening that brings the dream into shape. When Brahma opened his eyes, the first dawn rose, not over a horizon, but through the corridors of eternity. The galaxies were his exhale, the elements his thoughts. Space expanded like a sigh. Time began to count its steps. Matter condensed from light, and the song of existence began its endless rhythm of creation, preservation, and dissolution. In this sacred image, each element speaks a truth. The serpent is the river of eternity, the ocean, the womb of possibility. Vishnu, the mind that imagines all things. Brahma, the act of that imagination becoming real. It is not history, it is structure. A metaphor for the breathing of God, for the way consciousness moves from silence into form and back again. The ancients who envisioned this scene were not speaking of deities in some distant sky. They were describing a process that occurs now within every heartbeat and atom. Every moment of awareness mirrors the cosmic dream: awakening, creation, preservation, dissolution, return. Each thought is a miniature universe arising within the vastness of the divine mind. And so, the story of Vishnu dreaming is not mythology. It is the oldest map of consciousness. It tells us that everything we perceive is consciousness crystallizing into pattern, and that what we call reality is only the luminous fabric of that dream vibrating itself into visibility. The cosmos is not a place we inhabit. It is the thought we are made of.
When I first contemplated this vision, I understood it as something far away, a sacred tale about gods and galaxies. But with time, I began to sense its pulse within me. The dream of Vishnu was not happening somewhere in space.
It was happening behind my eyes, within every breath I took. The serpent of time wound itself through my veins, and the ocean of milk, the field of infinite possibility, was the stillness at the center of my own awareness. We are not merely inside the dream. We are the dreamer dreaming himself as us. Each of us carries a spark of Vishnu's consciousness, a point of light through which the infinite perceives its own reflection. When we close our eyes and enter the silence between thoughts, we return to that same ocean. The deeper we go, the more the distinction between me and the divine dissolves, until only the breathing remains, and we recognize it as both ours and not ours. The mind of Vishnu breathes through all minds. The heartbeat of Brahma pulses through every act of creation, every idea, every kindness, every spark of art or insight. The rhythm of Shiva, the dissolver, echoes in our letting go, in the moments when life asks us to release so that we may renew. The Trinity is not a hierarchy, but a process within us: creation, preservation, transformation, endlessly repeating, infinitely personal. To live awake within this dream is to realize that the divine is not separate from the details of life. The smallest gesture, pouring water, lighting a candle, offering a word of comfort, carries the same sacred geometry as the birth of a star. Every act is a continuation of the original dream, the dream of God discovering itself in form. And if all of existence is that dream, then awakening is not rebellion against illusion, it is intimacy with it. The mystics have always known this. Enlightenment is not about leaving the world, but about seeing it rightly. It is about recognizing that every face, every color, every vibration is Vishnu looking back through countless mirrors. Look closely enough, and you will find the ocean shimmering behind every moment. Feel deeply enough, and you will hear the serpent's hiss, the whisper of time, reminding you that nothing ends, everything renews. In this way, the story becomes a reflection. Vishnu's dream is not a myth about the beginning of creation. It is a mirror held before your soul, asking, can you remember that you are the dreamer too?
Chapter 2. The Ocean of Potential. The Field Before Form. Before the stars were born, before light had a name, there was only the still shimmer of the Kshira Sagara, the cosmic ocean of milk. Not an ocean of water, but an endless field of radiant possibility, stretching beyond measure or direction. It was the mind of the infinite before it began to imagine. The ancient seers described it as luminous and white, not because of color, but because it contained every frequency folded within one. It was silence condensed into potential. The surface did not ripple until awareness stirred. Then, from the depth of stillness, vibration awoke, and with it, the first pulse of creation. In modern language, we might call this ocean the quantum field, a realm where everything exists as probability, waiting for observation to bring it into form. Scientists speak of waves collapsing, of particles appearing from nothing when looked upon. Mystics spoke of the same miracle long ago, that the gaze itself gives birth to the world. The observer is the womb through which potential becomes real. Every thought, every emotion, every act of attention is a drop falling into this ocean, and like concentric rings spreading outward, those ripples become events, experiences, lives. What we call destiny is often the echo of waves we have forgotten we made. The universe, generous and exact, responds to vibration, not to desire or demand, but to frequency. It mirrors the tone we carry in our consciousness. The Kshira Sagara is therefore not distant from us.
It is the interior landscape of our being. When we close our eyes and feel the hum beneath thought, we touch its surface. It is that moment between inhale and exhale, the gap between heartbeats, the pause before a word. All power rests in that pause. The sages said that Vishnu lies upon this ocean, dreaming. The dream is creation, the ocean, consciousness itself. The waves of potential arise as the divine breathes. We are those waves, self-aware ripples, learning to remember that we belong to the sea. To understand this ocean is to see that matter is not solid, that life is not separate, that form is only vibration slowed enough to be seen. Reality, when looked at closely, dissolves back into rhythm. The walls between you and the stars are only densities of the same light. Everything touches everything. Everything is already one.
If the universe is an ocean of potential, then silence is its substance. Not the silence of absence, but of infinite presence, the kind that listens before anything speaks. It is the mother of all frequencies, the canvas upon which vibration paints. When I sit in stillness long enough, I can feel that silence breathing. It is not emptiness, it is awareness unshaped. Within it, thoughts arise like bubbles and burst back into nothing. Yet even the bursting is sacred, for it reveals the continuous dance of form and formlessness. The field does not fear change, it is change, eternal becoming, held within eternal peace. Creation, then, is not an act that happened once in time. It is happening now, in every instant. The Big Bang was only the first heartbeat of an infinite rhythm. Each moment you become conscious of a thought, the field trembles and responds. The dreamer moves again upon the surface of stillness, and something new comes into being. This understanding dissolves the divide between science and spirit. Quantum physicists call it superposition. The mystics call it oneness. Both point to the same mystery. There is no out there. The cosmos is happening within consciousness, and consciousness is not bound by the body. The mind that watches the stars is made of the same light that fuels them. To live from this awareness is to step gently. Words, gestures, even unspoken emotions ripple through the field. Every act becomes sacred because each vibration participates in the shaping of reality. The wise speak softly, not out of restraint, but reverence. They know the ocean listens. When we learn to rest inside that silence, we cease to chase creation and begin to collaborate with it. We stop forcing the tide and start breathing with it. In the still heart of every meditation, every prayer, every quiet moment before sleep, the same truth hums. The void is not empty, it is fertile. From that quietude, galaxies are born. From that quietude, insight descends. From that quietude, love takes form. Perhaps awakening is nothing more than remembering this rhythm, to live as both wave and ocean, movement and stillness, sound and silence. The field before form is not elsewhere. It is what you are when all stories rest. Close your eyes, listen beyond the noise, and you will feel it, the gentle shimmer of existence waiting to become whatever you dare to dream.
Chapter 3: The Serpent of Time, Cycles, Yugas, and the Breath of God. Time is not a river flowing forward. It is a serpent coiled upon itself, endless, spiraling, devouring and rebirthing its own tail. The ancients called it Ananta Shesha, the eternal remainder, upon whose body Vishnu rests as he dreams the worlds into being. Each ring of that serpent is a cycle of creation, preservation, and dissolution,
an infinite rhythm known as the breath of God. In the cosmic myth, one exhalation of Brahma gives birth to a universe. His inhalation draws it back into silence. A single day of Brahma lasts over 4 billion human years, an unfathomable measure meant not to impress, but to awaken awe. What we call eternity is only one breath to the divine. The sages understood that this breathing is not merely poetic. The expansion and contraction of universes mirror the pulsing of every heart. Galaxies spin as lungs inhale. Stars collapse as lungs exhale. The cosmos is not a machine, it is a living organism, inhaling itself into awareness, exhaling itself into rest. When Brahma opens his eyes, light floods reality. When he closes them, all dissolves back into the luminous ocean of potential. Between these blinks lies everything we know: birth and death, love and loss, the rise and fall of civilizations. Yet from the cosmic view, there is no tragedy in this cycle. The end is only another beginning folding inward. The Hindu scriptures called these vast rotations the yugas, the ages of light and shadow. In the Golden Age, humanity lives in harmony with the rhythm of the cosmos. As the ages descend, the vibration thickens, consciousness contracts, and we forget who dreams us. Then, when darkness ripens into fatigue, the cycle turns again. Vishnu breathes out once more, and the dream renews itself. This vision of time shatters our linear illusions. We are not crawling from past to future along a line of inevitability. We are spiraling through a living mandala of experience. Every joy, every sorrow, every rebirth is a movement along the curve of that serpent. Time does not consume us, it carries us, like a current, bearing us toward remembrance. To the divine, there is no before or after. All moments coexist like threads in a woven circle. What we call history is the unfolding of a single gesture seen from within the spiral. The universe breathes, and we breathe within it. Smaller rhythms nested within greater ones, each mirroring the infinite pulse.
If time breathes, then so do souls. The spirit journeys through the great inhalation and exhalation of existence, descending into form and rising again toward light. We call it reincarnation, but it is simply the rhythm of consciousness, stretching and returning. The wave remembering it is ocean. Each life is a season within that rhythm. We are born not to begin, but to continue. Every experience, every encounter, every heartbreak is another turn in the spiral. Not punishment, but opportunity to refine awareness. We expand when we love. We contract when we fear. And through these oscillations, the soul learns to move with the breath instead of against it. There are moments when we feel caught in repetition, the same mistakes, the same lessons disguised in new faces. That is the serpent looping upon itself. Time is patient. It repeats until we remember. It is not cruel. It is merciful, allowing us infinite chances to awaken. Some souls move quickly through the coils, others linger in certain turns, tasting the flavor of experience more deeply. But all are moving toward the same center, the still point where the breath originates. At that point, time ceases to feel like passage and becomes pulse, an ever-present vibration humming behind the illusion of progress. When death arrives, it is not an end, but a pause. The divine inhaling once more. The spirit is drawn back into the field, purified of its densities, until it is ready to exhale again into a new form. What we call next life is merely the next beat in the heart of God. If we could perceive the total rhythm,
we would see how nothing is lost. The child who dies young, the sage who lives 100 years, the star that burns out, all are intervals in the same breath. The universe wastes nothing. It transforms everything. To live with this awareness is to step out of anxiety. The rush to arrive dissolves when you realize there is nowhere to go. You are already within the eternal inhale and exhale of the infinite. The only task is to breathe consciously with it. So pause. Feel the rhythm beneath your chest. The air entering and leaving you is the same air that entered and left the first humans, the same air that swirled through the lungs of ancient stars. In that breath, past and future collapse into now. Time is not passing, it is breathing through you, as you.
Chapter 4. The Lucid Dreamer, Awakening Within the Illusion. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the familiar world trembles, not because it is ending, but because the mind that built it begins to awaken. The walls between dream and waking dissolve, and one realizes, I am not the one dreaming this. I am the dream itself, remembering the dreamer. It begins subtly. You notice patterns repeating, emotions echoing the same lessons in new disguises. You recognize the way life responds to thought, the way outer events mirror inner states. Coincidences start to accumulate until coincidence itself feels like an outdated word. Something is orchestrating everything with exquisite precision, and that something is not outside you. At first, the realization feels dizzying. How can the dreamer be inside the dream? How can the wave remember it is ocean while still rising and falling? Yet the paradox is precisely the point. To awaken within illusion is not to break its laws, but to see through them while playing along. The mystics called it lucidity, the capacity to be aware without needing to escape. You see now that your thoughts are not harmless whispers, they are architects of experience. The emotions you once dismissed as private become weather patterns shaping the climate of your life. Every belief projects a scene upon the screen of existence. The entire cosmos is interactive, responsive, alive. And suddenly, you realize that prayer, intention, and imagination are not metaphors, they are technologies of consciousness. To live without awareness is to sleepwalk through these mechanics, reacting to dreams you do not know you are shaping. To awaken is to regain authorship, not control, but communion. The lucid dreamer does not dictate the dream, she dances with it. Awareness does not erase limitation, it transforms it into art. In this understanding, illusion ceases to be deception. It becomes expression, a language through which the infinite speaks. The tree, the river, the stranger's eyes, the pain that humbles you, all are lines in a poem being written by consciousness for its own remembrance. The dream is not false, it is sacred theater. And so, awakening is not an exit, it is intimacy. You do not leave the dream behind, you enter it more fully, with eyes that see through and within. When you know you are dreaming, the fear of loss dissolves, for how can the wave mourn its own foam? Life ceases to be a test and becomes revelation.
The first sign of true lucidity is gentleness. When you awaken within the dream, you stop fighting with its forms. You understand that even confusion has a purpose, that even chaos is choreography. You begin to move slower, to speak softer, to listen deeper. You realize that every encounter is the universe introducing you to another part of yourself. Lucidity is not detachment. It is not the cold gaze of someone who has outgrown the world. It is warmth, the compassionate clarity of one who sees illusion yet chooses to love it anyway. The lucid dreamer does not reject the story. She blesses it. She lives among symbols without being ruled by them, knowing that behind every veil is only light disguised as shadow. To live awake inside the illusion is to inhabit paradox gracefully. You work, love, struggle, rest, and yet, beneath it all, you know none of it can diminish what you are. You play your role fully while remembering that it is a role. You cry when pain arrives, but you cry consciously, aware that even your tears are part of the divine rainfall nourishing the soul. Lucidity transforms suffering into dialogue. When something breaks, you no longer ask, "Why me?" but "What is this teaching me about myself?" You stop pleading for escape and start listening for meaning. Every challenge becomes an initiation. Every wound, a portal back to wholeness. And in those moments of still awareness, between thoughts, between breaths, you glimpse what has always been true. The dreamer and the dream are one. The observer and the observed share the same pulse. You are not trapped in illusion. You are illusion experiencing itself as sacred art. In that space, gratitude arises effortlessly. You thank the dream for its colors, even for its storms. You thank the body for carrying consciousness through this temporary form. You thank time for teaching impermanence and death for pointing toward eternity. Nothing needs to be resisted. Everything is fuel for awakening. When this lucidity matures, something extraordinary happens. Life itself begins to cooperate. Synchronicities intensify. Doors open naturally. Guidance appears without effort. The universe bends toward awareness, like a flower toward sunlight. The dreamer recognizes the dreamer within you and adjusts its rhythm to match your remembrance. You realize finally that waking up inside the dream is not a privilege for mystics, but a birthright for all. The divine did not design this world as a trap, but as a mirror to see how long it would take for each fragment of consciousness to whisper back, "I remember." So, awaken softly. Do not rush to leave the illusion. Polish it until it reflects truth. Walk through the dream with kindness, humility, and wonder. The world will not disappear when you awaken. It will deepen. The dream will remain, but you will know yourself as the lucid dreamer, the infinite one who opened its eyes within the illusion and found God looking back.
Chapter 5. Quantum Mirrors, When Science Touches the Infinite. There is a moment, even in science, when logic bends toward mystery. The more deeply physicists peer into the fabric of existence, the more the cosmos begins to look like a mind reflecting upon itself. What began as equations has turned into poetry written in particles. Quantum physics shattered the clockwork universe. It revealed that reality is not made of solid things, but of shimmering possibilities. Electrons do not exist in one place until observed. Light behaves as both particle and wave depending on how it is seen. Matter dissolves into probabilities. Certainty evaporates. And at the center of it all stands the observer, not as a passive witness, but as the key participant. To the mystics of the East, this was never surprising. For millennia, they had spoken of Maya, the illusion of solidity, and Atman, the consciousness through which all forms arise. The quantum field and the ocean of Brahman are mirrors of the same truth, that existence depends on awareness to take shape.
In the laboratories of the modern age, the same revelation unfolds through different language. When an observer looks, the wave collapses into a particle. When the gaze withdraws, the particle dissolves back into uncertainty. What ancient sages called divine imagination, science now calls measurement. Both describe the same event, the awakening of form within the mind of the infinite. The experiment known as the double slit remains one of the most haunting metaphors for creation. A single photon passes through two slits at once, existing in multiple states until observed, and only then does it choose a position. The universe waits for awareness before deciding to exist. What does that say about us? It suggests that consciousness is not inside the brain. Rather, the brain is an instrument playing within consciousness. We are not sparks inside matter. We are matter awakening to its own luminous source. The so-called laws of physics are simply the consistent habits of divine attention. Every scientific revelation becomes a spiritual reminder. Observation is participation. The moment you witness the world, you activate it. Every glance is a spark. Every act of perception a divine event. The universe is not something happening to us. It is something happening through us. And if the universe responds to observation, then perhaps awareness is the true constant, the invisible axis around which matter dances. Beyond gravity, beyond relativity, even beyond time, consciousness remains the silent field from which all equations emerge.
Imagine, then, that the act of seeing is sacred, not metaphorically, but literally. The photon that reflects from your eyes, the neuron that fires in response, the thought that arises after, all are ripples of one consciousness meeting itself. When you look upon the world, the universe gazes back. This understanding changes everything. It means the observer is not a stranger in creation, but its intimate counterpart. Reality is relational. It blooms in response to presence. The wave does not collapse because it was forced to. It chooses coherence in the face of awareness, the way a child straightens when seen by a loving parent. To observe is to bless. To pay attention is to give being. Every moment of presence strengthens the architecture of existence. Every act of indifference allows it to fade. What science calls measurement and mystics call prayer are both gestures of the same truth, consciousness giving shape to chaos. In this light, the ancient phrase "Tot Dvam Asi," thou art that, gains a new resonance. You are not within the universe is within you, rising and dissolving with your awareness. When your perception widens, so does creation. When your attention fractures, reality flickers. You are not watching a show, you are co-directing the play. Even quantum entanglement whispers this secret. Two particles, once connected, remain linked across space and time. Change one, and the other responds instantly, as if space were irrelevant. The mystics would smile. Of course, distance is illusion. Consciousness is one continuum pretending to be two. When understood in this way, science stops being an opposite of spirit and becomes its language. The laboratory and the meditation mat are both temples where the infinite studies itself. One measures with instruments, the other with silence. Both discover that reality is participatory, intelligent, alive. The mystic within the scientist and the scientist within the mystic are one and the same. Both kneel before mystery, realizing that knowing is not conquest, but communion. As Einstein once hinted, the most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. In that experience, intellect bows to wonder, and wonder opens the heart. So let us stand at the meeting point, where quantum theory touches ancient wisdom. and equations become hymns. Let us remember that each observation is a sacred act, each thought a brushstroke upon the fabric of reality. The mind does not simply watch the universe, it activates it. Every moment of awareness is God seeing himself anew, through your eyes, through mine, through all that is.
Chapter 6. The Inner Architect. Thought, Emotion, and Creation. Reality is not a fixed landscape. It is a living blueprint that shifts according to the geometry of thought. Every belief you hold is a line drawn upon that invisible design, and every thought you nurture becomes a structure built within it. You are not wandering through a finished world. You are walking through the architecture of your own mind. In the ancient temples of Egypt, the builders carved the phrase, "as within, so without," upon their sacred walls. The mystics of India called it Manas Maya, the world as projection of mind. Modern science calls it the observer effect. Different languages for the same revelation. Consciousness designs the form it inhabits. Each thought is a seed, and the mind is the soil where creation takes root. What you imagine repeatedly, what you feel intensely, begins to shape the field around you. Like invisible architects, thoughts gather material from the quantum sea, arranging energy into patterns that later harden into experience. What you expect becomes what you encounter. The unconscious is the foundation of this architecture. It holds the blueprints drawn long before memory, beliefs inherited from ancestors, collective fears, ancient archetypes. These buried lines determine much of what appears solid in your life. Until you examine them, you live inside a structure built by forgotten hands. Awakening begins when you pick up the tools again: awareness, focus, emotion, and start redesigning. Each moment of mindfulness is a draft revised, a wall moved, a window opened toward more light. You realize that changing reality does not require battling the outer world, but renovating the inner one. To think consciously is to build consciously. Thoughts are not clouds drifting through the brain. They are frequencies, blueprints encoded with intention. When held long enough with feeling, they sculpt the unseen fabric of matter. You cannot think scarcity and live abundance, or think fear and dwell in peace, because the architecture must match the blueprint. Creation is never neutral. The mind is always building, even when asleep, even when distracted. The only choice is whether the design is deliberate or accidental. The unconscious architect constructs through repetition. The awakened architect builds through clarity. Every word you speak etches a line into the design. Every image you hold becomes a beam of support or collapse. This is why prayer, visualization, and affirmation are not superstitions but engineering, emotional geometry shaping the invisible. The voice is vibration, vibration is form, and form, once stabilized by feeling, becomes destiny. So the first lesson of conscious creation is reverence. Treat every thought as sacred clay, every emotion as the sculptor's hand. Nothing you imagine is wasted. Everything leaves an impression in the field. The universe listens not to your wishes, but to your consistency, to the pattern you repeat when you think no one is watching.
If thought is the blueprint, emotion is the current that gives it life. Without feeling, ideas remain sketches, abstract designs on invisible paper. But when emotion enters, the lines ignite, energy flows, and the blueprint breathes. This is why love, gratitude, and awe create faster than fear or doubt.
Positive emotion expands the architecture, widening the corridors of possibility. Fear constricts them, sealing off potential rooms of experience. Each feeling is a frequency that either harmonizes with creation or distorts it. To master your life is to learn the music of your own vibration. Intention directs this energy. It is the compass guiding the current. When thought, emotion, and intention align, they form what mystics call coherence, the state in which the inner architect's design perfectly resonates with the universal field. In that resonance, manifestation becomes effortless. The dream begins to self-organize around your clarity. To design consciously within the dream is not to control it, but to collaborate with it. The divine mind responds to alignment, not demand. The more you resist, the denser the material becomes. The more you allow, the lighter and more fluid it grows. The architect does not force the structure. She listens to the materials, adjusts to their nature, and creates harmony through awareness. When you align thought and emotion, even the simplest acts become architecture. Pouring water with gratitude, speaking with kindness, breathing with intention, each moment refines the sacred geometry of your reality. You begin to notice the world changing, not because it obeys you, but because it recognizes you as a conscious participant. This is the art of living awake, to sculpt reality through the quiet precision of awareness, to draw with care, to feel with love, to build with wonder. The dream becomes not an illusion to escape, but a cathedral of consciousness to inhabit fully. Yet the greatest secret is this: the architect and the structure are the same. The designer lives inside her design. The thought dwells within its form. The creator and the creation mirror one another endlessly. What you build in mind becomes the room where your soul awakens. So look around your life and see not chaos, but architecture. Every event, every relationship, every season is a column supporting your remembrance. Nothing is random. Every pattern is purposeful. The mind of the infinite draws through you, shaping your experiences to reveal its own design. To live as the inner architect is to accept authorship with humility and joy, to understand that your beliefs are blueprints, your emotions are energy, and your attention is the hand that builds worlds. The divine does not design for you, it designs through you. And the moment you realize this, every thought becomes sacred geometry, every heartbeat a hammer of light, and every breath a new beginning.
Chapter 7. The Sacred Reversal, Death, Return, and the Inward Spiral. The universe does not end, it exhales. What we call destruction is only contraction, the sacred reversal through which creation remembers itself. Just as Brahma opens his eyes to birth the worlds, he closes them to draw them home. The same breath that expands to form galaxies eventually folds back into silence, not as punishment, but as reunion. This is the eternal rhythm, expansion and return, out-breath and in-breath, genesis and repose. To the finite mind, the collapse of stars seems tragic, the death of bodies cruel, but to the cosmic heart, every implosion is a homecoming. When the light recedes, it is not lost. It is being gathered back into the source from which it came. The sages saw this clearly. In their visions, they witnessed the night of Brahma, the long inhale of the divine when universes dissolve like dreams at dawn. All forms vanish, all matter becomes vibration again,
and every vibration merges into stillness. Yet nothing is destroyed, it only changes density. Energy never dies, it simply forgets its form to remember its essence. The river returns to the ocean, the spark reunites with the fire. The serpent of time turns inward, devouring its own tail, completing the cycle of eternity. On a cosmic scale, this process is immense, aeons folding upon themselves. But it also happens in every moment within you. Each breath you take mirrors the universe's contraction and release. Every sleep, every silence, every pause is a miniature dissolution. You die to one moment and awaken in the next. The soul understands this instinctively. It has died countless times, to bodies, to identities, to lifetimes. Death is not new to it. It is the most familiar passage of all. The only thing that fears the end is the ego, for it cannot cross the threshold. It clings to continuity, not realizing that the self it guards is the very illusion that must dissolve for truth to breathe again. When you understand this sacred reversal, your relationship with endings changes completely. You stop asking, "Why must this die?" and start whispering, "What is being reborn through this?" For the universe never retracts without planting a new seed. Every contraction carries the code of the next creation. Every disappearance is the prelude to remembrance. Even within chaos, order hides. Even within grief, renewal waits. The spiral never stops turning, it only changes direction. The outward path builds identity. The inward path restores unity. One is exploration, the other is return. Together they form the heartbeat of existence.
To die, in truth, is not to vanish, but to awaken elsewhere. The body unravels, the story ends, but awareness, that indestructible spark, remains. It simply withdraws from the visible dream into the invisible one, carrying the fragrance of its experiences like a memory of light. This is the secret reversal at work within every being. Death is not a door closing, but a veil thinning. On the other side, there is no judgment, only recognition. You remember that you were never the mask, never the role, never the temporary name. You were the silence between lifetimes, the witness of every unfolding. When you learn to see this while still alive, the fear of death dissolves. You begin to practice dying consciously, not as an end, but as a surrender. You let go of grievances, of pride, of all the identities that once seemed necessary. You shed illusions the way autumn sheds leaves, and beneath each layer you release, you find something lighter, freer, truer. This inner death is what the mystics called rebirth. The ego sleeps so that the spirit may open its eyes. The dream of separation ends so that the awareness of unity can return. This is the alchemy of the soul, dissolution as transformation. The crucifixion of the small self gives rise to resurrection in the vast one. To embrace this process is to align with the rhythm of the cosmos. The same intelligence that collapses stars into black holes guides the heart to collapse its false walls. Both are acts of gravity, the pull of the center drawing everything back to its origin. Nothing escapes that call because it is love itself calling everything home. When we resist endings, we resist the breath of God. We hold our inhale too long, afraid to exhale, afraid to trust the cycle. But life cannot stay in expansion forever. What goes out must come in. The universe must remember itself to remain whole. So when the seasons shift, when relationships fade, when chapters close, do not mourn as if you are losing.
Bow as if you are returning. The path inward is not retreat, it is restoration. You are not diminishing, you are condensing into essence. And one day, when your final breath leaves this body, you will feel the same pattern on a grander scale, the sacred reversal pulling you inward, the gentle gravity of eternity welcoming you back. The dream will fade, and yet you will not. You will realize that nothing dies, it only changes the way it dreams.
Chapter 8. The Great Remembering. Waking as the Source. There comes a moment, quiet but unmistakable, when the dream no longer feels separate from the dreamer. The distance collapses. The question, "Who am I?" dissolves into the silence that has always known the answer. You do not find God. You remember you were never apart. For lifetimes we have wandered through illusions of distance, collecting fragments of ourselves in faces, in stars, in stories. We searched for meaning as if the divine were elsewhere, as if the mirror were the truth instead of the reflection. Yet the journey was never about reaching, it was about recognizing. Every search, every desire, every heartbreak was the same longing wearing different clothes, the infinite calling itself home. The great remembering is not revelation from above, it is remembrance from within. It begins softly as an echo in the heart. I am not separate from what I see. The trees breathe because I breathe. The sky exists because I perceive it. Consciousness looks through every eye, listens through every ear, feels through every soul. There is no I and thou, only I am.
In that realization, something extraordinary happens. The universe becomes intimate. The stars stop being distant fires and become the cells of your own cosmic body. You see yourself in the movement of clouds, in the laughter of strangers, in the tears of a child. The boundaries between inner and outer dissolve like mist at dawn. The same light animating the sun is the one behind your eyes. You remember that you are the dream, not a character inside it, but the awareness dreaming all characters simultaneously. Every soul you've ever loved was a facet of your own divine reflection, and every adversary was a teacher disguised as opposition. Even pain becomes holy when seen through this lens, for it was never meant to punish, only to wake. The mind quiets in the presence of this truth. Words lose urgency, concepts fade. What remains is simple being, vast, luminous, unbroken. The need to define God disappears because definition would shrink what is boundless. The mystics called it union, enlightenment, nirvana, but these are only sounds pointing to what has no opposite. This is not an escape from the world, but a deepening into it. You do not float above existence, you sink into its essence. The flower, the breeze, the heartbeat of another, all become gateways through which eternity breathes. The dream becomes lucid, yes, but also sacred. To be awake is to see holiness shimmering everywhere, even in the ordinary. When the dreamer awakens fully within the dream, love becomes the only language left. Not sentimental love, but the love that recognizes itself in all things. The quiet compassion that arises when every boundary melts. It is not something you do, it is what remains when all else falls away. This love does not need reason, it loves the broken and the whole, the saint and the sinner, because it sees no difference. It looks at the world and whispers, "This is me." It embraces creation not to fix it, but to behold it, to celebrate its endless capacity for expression. To live in this state is to walk gently. You stop measuring worth, stop labeling moments as sacred or mundane. You begin to sense the divine pulse beneath everything, the invisible rhythm that connects laughter to rain, silence to music, life to death. Presence replaces striving. Awareness replaces effort. You live not as someone seeking enlightenment, but as light remembering itself in motion. From this space, forgiveness becomes natural. How could you condemn another when you see your own reflection behind their eyes? How could you fear loss when you understand that nothing leaves consciousness? Even death loses its sharpness. It becomes another translation of love, another way for the dream to reimagine itself. This is the summit of lucidity, not detachment, but deep participation. To wake as the source is to be fully here, fully human, fully divine. It is to recognize that the wave and the ocean have never been two, that every breath is the infinite exhaling through you, and every heartbeat the universe reminding itself that it's alive. When you reach this remembrance, prayer transforms into gratitude. The need to ask becomes the joy of thanking. You no longer seek miracles because you see that everything already is one. The sacred hides in the smallest gesture, in the way sunlight lands on a window, in the sound of your own laughter, in the eyes that meet yours across a room. To wake as the source is not the end of the dream. It is the moment the dream realizes its holiness. The play continues. The sun still rises, the seasons still turn, you still feel and grow and weep, but now you know. The actor, the stage, and the script are all the same consciousness dancing for the beauty of remembrance. And so the great remembering is not an achievement, it is a homecoming. The dreamer has never left the dream, it was only pretending to forget. Now, in this stillness, awareness opens its eyes and smiles, whispering to itself, I am the dream dreaming. I am the source remembering. I am all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be.
There was no trumpet announcing the moment I awoke. No thunder, no revelation of angels. Just a silence, vast, familiar, and impossibly kind. For so long I had searched for God in mountains, in scriptures, in other eyes. I didn't realize that what I sought was the one doing the seeking. It happened not in triumph, but in surrender. I simply stopped running. I stopped insisting that meaning had to come from somewhere else. I sat in the stillness of my own being, and there it was, the hum that had been beneath everything all along. The same hum that vibrates through galaxies, through rivers, through the pause between heartbeats. The soundless sound of presence. In that instant, everything turned inside out. The world I thought I was living in was not outside me. It was within, projected like light through the prism of consciousness. Every memory, every face, every joy and loss was part of a single tapestry woven by awareness for its own delight. The dream did not end, it became transparent. I remember touching the ground and feeling the pulse of eternity beneath my hands. I remember breathing and realizing that the air was not entering me, I was entering it. The boundaries dissolved. The me that once struggled to understand dissolved into something vaster and gentler. It wasn't annihilation, it was reunion. I had feared that awakening would erase the world, that love would lose its sweetness once I saw through the illusion. But the opposite happened. Colors deepened, sounds grew softer but fuller. Even pain became luminous, a vibration reminding me that everything, even sorrow, was made of the same light. I understood then that the purpose of the dream was not to trap me, but to teach me how to see.
All along, the divine had been whispering through ordinary things: the smell of rain, the warmth of a hand, the pause before words. I had mistaken these for accidents. They were invitations. When I looked into the mirror after that day, I didn't see a person. I saw a window, the eye of the dream looking back at itself. It smiled through me, and I finally smiled back. For the first time, I did not feel chosen or special. I felt inevitable, as if existence could not be complete without this small point of awareness to witness it. Now, everything I do feels like breathing in rhythm with the infinite. The sacred no longer hides in temples. It lives in the simplicity of being here, now. Every act of kindness feels like prayer. Every moment of awareness feels like creation beginning again. I still dream, but I dream consciously. I still fall, but I fall softly, knowing that there is nowhere to land but in God. I still forget, but even forgetting has become part of remembering. For the truth is not a destination, it is a movement, an eternal unfolding of awareness within awareness. The journey I once imagined as a path has become a spiral returning endlessly to the center. The seeker and the sought are one breath apart. The silence that used to frighten me is now home. I no longer need to understand it. I just rest in it, as one rests in the heartbeat of a beloved. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I sense the dreamer smiling through creation. I feel it watching through the eyes of every living being, human, animal, star. It is not above or beyond us. It is us. Each thought, each gesture, each laugh is the infinite rediscovering itself again and again. So I write these final words not as a teacher, but as a witness, a voice remembering itself across time. If you are reading this, then somewhere in the vast dream, another part of me has awakened. You are not a stranger. You are the same awareness wearing a different face. We are the dream looking at itself through infinite mirrors. And now that you too have walked these words, tell me, where in this infinite dream are you listening from? What truth waits to awaken through your voice? Comment below, share your light, and let us continue this remembrance together. Each message you leave here is another ripple in the divine ocean, the ocean that dreams us all.